My name is Elena Cross, and the message that finally broke whatever was left between me and my family arrived at 2:41 p.m. on a cold Tuesday, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was sitting alone in a glass-walled conference room in downtown San Francisco, looking out at a skyline built by people who were never invited to family dinners either. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I almost ignored it. I shouldn't have checked. But when you grow up trained to respond to family disappointment, your thumb moves before your mind does. It was from my mother. Elena, we've decided it's best if you don't come for Thanksgiving this year. Your brother and his wife are hosting. There will be important guests. It's not personal. We'll catch up another time. Love you. I read it twice, slowly, carefully. Then I placed my phone face down on the table and looked up just as the lead partner from Northbridge Capital slid a folder across to me. Inside was a preliminary agreement valuing my company at $700 million. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Because the truth is, this story didn't start with money. It started years earlier with silence. Growing up, my family loved certainty. Clear paths. Recognizable success. Titles that sounded impressive when said out loud at dinner parties. My older brother followed that script perfectly. Top grades. Elite university. Corporate job. Promotion photos framed and displayed like trophies. I didn't. I studied systems. Not business systems. How things break. Why people fail. Where pressure builds before collapse. While everyone else was chasing stability, I was obsessed with fragility. I wanted to understand why companies that looked invincible fell apart overnight. My parents called it overthinking. My brother called it not practical. At family gatherings I was introduced as Elena. She does something with tech. Something. After graduation, I turned down a comfortable job offer and used my savings to start a tiny firm focused on identifying structural weaknesses in mid-sized companies, the blind spots nobody wanted to look at because they weren't visible on spreadsheets. For the first 2 years, I barely slept. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture and a desk pushed against a window that faced a brick wall. I worked 14-hour days and answered emails at 3 a.m. I learned how to survive on silence. My family asked polite questions, but their eyes always drifted. How's the little business? Still trying that startup thing? When are you going to do something stable? I stopped correcting them. What they didn't know was that, while they were congratulating my brother on another promotion, my company was quietly becoming indispensable. We weren't flashy. We didn't chase headlines. We worked with organizations right before collapse when everyone else had already failed them. Hospitals, infrastructure firms, financial platforms on the brink of disaster. I saved companies no one would ever thank me for. And I was fine with that. Until she entered the picture. My brother's wife, polished, connected, and deeply invested in appearances, didn't dislike me loudly. She did something far more effective. She erased me. Guest lists became tight. Seating arrangements placed me far from conversations that mattered. Invitations stopped arriving altogether. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. Then Thanksgiving disappeared. And now here I was disinvited from my own family holiday while sitting across from investors discussing numbers. That would change everything. The meeting continued. Valuations, retention clauses, expansion plans. I answered every question with calm precision. Years of being underestimated had trained me well. When it ended, the lead partner shook my hand. We'll announce publicly on Thursday evening, he said. Timing is perfect. Thanksgiving evening. I nodded. That night I went home alone. I didn't call anyone. I didn't post anything. I ordered takeout, poured a glass of water, and stood by my window watching the city breathe. At 6:03 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day, my phone lit up. One alert became 10. 10 became 50. Headlines, notifications, messages from people who had never once asked how I was doing before. My company, my name, $700 million. I watched it happen quietly. The world discovering something my family had never cared to see. And then the calls started. But I didn't answer, because what happened next wasn't about success. It was about reckoning. Thanksgiving night did not end quietly. By 6:27 p.m., my phone had registered over 80 missed calls. Most of them came from numbers I hadn't seen light up my screen in years. Former colleagues, old mentors, people who once said, "Let me know if you ever need anything," and then vanished the moment I stopped being convenient. I let the phone vibrate until it went silent again. At 6:41 p.m., my mother called for the third time. I didn't answer. At 6:45 p.m., my brother called. I didn't answer that either. At 6:52 p.m., a message finally came through, not concern, not apology, not pride. Confusion. "Elena, what is going on? We're seeing something on the news. Call us. Now." I stared at the screen, then locked my phone and set it face down on the counter. Outside, fireworks from somewhere down the bay cracked against the sky. Someone else's celebration, not mine. Because this moment wasn't victory. It was exposure. The next morning, every major financial outlet had picked up the story. Analysts praised the structure of the deal. Industry insiders called it inevitable. Some even said my firm had been undervalued for years. That part made me laugh quietly. Undervalued. Story of my life. By noon Friday, my voicemail inbox was full. Not one message asked how I was. They asked what I planned to do next. Whether the first was moving. If I needed representation. If I could help someone's son get an interview. At 12:14 p.m., I finally returned one call. My mother answered on the first ring. "Elena, thank God. We were worried. Why didn't you tell us?" I leaned against the counter, eyes closed. "I did," I said calmly. "For years. You just didn't listen." Silence. Then my brother's voice appeared in the background. Controlled. Polished. The same voice he used in meetings. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "We didn't know your company was this big. That's the point," I replied. "You never asked," he sighed. "You have to understand how things looked." "No," I said. "You have to understand how things felt." I reminded them gently, clearly about the text, the disinvitation, the concern for appearances, the way success only mattered when it could be displayed. My mother started crying. My brother defended. And somewhere behind them, I imagined the woman who had quietly decided I didn't belong at her table, now calculating what my presence could do for her image. They invited me to Christmas. I declined. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Over the next few weeks, the consequences arrived in waves. My brother's professional circle shifted. Conversations cooled. People who once smiled easily now asked careful questions. The story had rewritten itself, and not in his favor. I watched from a distance, not with satisfaction, but with detachment. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Success doesn't heal old wounds. It reveals them. The people who dismissed you don't suddenly become supportive, they become interested. An interest without respect is just another form of disrespect. I moved offices. I stayed on as advisor. I hired people who reminded me of myself, underestimated, observant, quiet. I built something new without needing anyone's permission. And my family. We speak less. But when we do, the tone is different. No more advice. No more assumptions. No more invitations based on optics. Just space. And peace. I learned something important through all of this. Something no amount of money could teach me. You don't win by proving people wrong. You win by no longer needing them to be right. They didn't invite me to Thanksgiving. And that night, the world finally saw me. Not because I was excluded, but because I stopped waiting to be included.